From Synozur, this is Polaris. I'm Chris McNulty. Next month, Microsoft will kick off the Microsoft 365 Community Conference, their annual event for thousands of business and technology professionals to highlight the latest innovations from across Microsoft. Today, we'll talk to Jeff Teper, president of Microsoft, and Karuana Gatimu about the journey that's taken us here, what they'll bring to this year's conference, and what to expect if you're attending this year. This is Polaris. Welcome to Polaris Pathways. I'm your host, Chris McNulty. Synozur, the transformation company, transforms business for our clients, navigating strategy and leadership culture with ease. Today, I'm happy to introduce Jeff Teper, president of collaborative apps and platforms at Microsoft, and Karuana Gatimu. Karuana is the director of M365 customer advocacy at Microsoft. They'll be joining us in a few minutes, but first, let's look at our terms and our data points. First, live events are back. According to Allied Market Research, after most events disappeared in 2020 and 21 during the pandemic, the events industry is expected to top over $1.5 trillion by 2028 and is growing at more than 11% annually. One of the key skills people are getting at conferences is learning how to apply AI correctly. McKinsey is projecting that generative AI can add over $4.4 trillion to corporate profits, with significant boosts to core productivity from AI and automation. If you're coming to a conference, let's talk a bit about the M365 Community Conference. It's a significant event for enthusiasts of M365 and Copilot. It has over 200 sessions, workshops, lightning talks, roundtables, panels, and keynotes covering Copilot, agents, Teams, Viva, SharePoint, OneDrive, Power Platform, and more. At Synozur, we'll be delivering a number of sessions across the realm, as well as being proud to sponsor a booth at this year's expo. We've been speaking long enough. Jeff and Karuana are in our virtual backstage. Let's go. So today on Polaris, as I said before, I'm thrilled to be joined by Jeff and Karuana from Microsoft to talk about this year's M365 Community Conference. Jeff, Karuana, welcome to Polaris.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to be here and fantastic, of course, as always, to talk to you and to talk about our favorite event for the best community in tech.
Thank you, Chris. It's wonderful to be with both of you. I feel so honored to be included.
So let's get started. Jeff, it's a surprise, but there will be some folks in this audience who are not that familiar with you. Could you talk a little bit about your journey and your role as president of collaborative apps and platforms?
It's unbelievable. I've been here at Microsoft for 33 years, and I lead the teams focused on our collaboration tools, specifically SharePoint and OneDrive and Teams and Planner and Engage and a few other things. And not to do the whole arc, but it's been exciting to go from one era where we were making sure Office had a server to collaborate with on premises. And then the big sea change to the cloud was chapter 2. And now chapter 3 is the transformation of all our products with AI and agents. So excited to be here. The pace and creativity is the greatest I've seen in my 33-year career here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I went back to get ready for this and read Bill Gates' speech at the inaugural SharePoint conference 2008. And it sort of made me smile when he said that tomorrow we're going to introduce for the first time ever SharePoint Online.
He did two things at that conference. One, he declared SharePoint on-prem to be the fastest product in Microsoft history to get to $1 billion in on-premise business. And then in classic tech leader fashion, he said, yeah, but that's yesterday's news. Everybody's going to the cloud. We're going to make Microsoft Online services with SharePoint Online, Exchange Online available for organizations of all sizes. And You remember that was 2008, and we were still getting feedback from customers at the SharePoint conference in 2014 that they weren't ready to go to the cloud. One thing I love about Microsoft is we're visionary and looking forward and patient, because sometimes these changes come fast and sometimes you have to work pretty hard to make them happen.
Karuana, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your role as Director of Microsoft 365 Customer Advocacy?
I sure will. It's so amazing to think back to the original SharePoint conference and the history. I think I've been focused on that this week because of Microsoft's 50th anniversary. But I have been a customer of Microsoft, a Microsoft partner, been active in the community, and then had the privilege to come inside. And now I work in product engineering. And I often say that Microsoft is the longest and most successful relationship I ever had.
That's fantastic. So let's start with the obvious question. Although I mentioned this in the upfronts, Jeff, what exactly is the M365 Community Conference?
Yeah, it's an event we've had for several years that has sessions from Microsoft covering latest news, best practices, adoption, culture, but also a select set of sessions driven by customers and partners. And it's complementary to some of our bigger first-party events like Ignite, which is in the fall, that is very much focused on the breadth of products. This event specifically focused on Microsoft 365 in the spring. And all our events have a community bent to it. But this one is, the soul of it is very much getting people to meet each other, have fun, share best practices, build mentorship relationships. So it's in Las Vegas in early May, and it's going to be our best one yet. Just as earlier versions of this help customers understand and get to the cloud, whether it was user change management or IT governance, the need to get different viewpoints and best practices and product roadmap on AI is more important than ever. And this is a great event where you can just meet with the people making those products, like me and our team, but also meet with other customers and partners on the leading edge and share learnings with them. So I'm super, super excited about it.
Karuana, what would you add to that?
Well, I think Jeff really touched on so many parts, but one of the things I like about it is being able to really get the real world knowledge. I like to call it truth from the trenches. We have our big shows, we have our product moments, and Microsoft shares its vision for everything that this technology can be. And sometimes there's a gap between our vision and what people are actually implementing. And at a show like this, you can really close that gap because you meet other professionals, other customers who are on this journey with you, and you can really learn from them. So I find some of the moments in the community lounge or after sessions where people are learning from each other to be some of the most powerful. And it's certainly a fantastic place to also continue to expand your career opportunities, right? And sometimes people think that you have to really be deep in this tech to get the most out of this. But we have so many people who have never come to a show like this before. It's very newbie friendly, whether you're new to Microsoft or new to a particular product area. And we welcome you. We welcome new people. We'll help you along. We have a, getting started with Microsoft session. So I don't want people to feel like they have to be a, 20-year IT pro like me to get something out of this. It's for everyone, no matter what your level or what role you have in an organization.
Yeah, that's a great point, Karuana. As we get all nostalgic here, Microsoft 50th anniversary, the origin of this in SharePoint, it's all great. But many people are entering the workforce right now, and that's history. And you're entering the workforce with the best tool set ever with AI and Copilot and agents. And so we're going to help you learn that stuff, stay current, have a huge impact, grow your skills, grow your career, be a change agent to influence and lead other people. So I really want to say one thing that's great about this place is we can reflect and celebrate and be nostalgic, but don't feel like you need any of that shared history. Let's go invent the future together. And this will be the best place to do that too, not just celebrate how we got here.
I'd like to think that this is an event that's not like Severance. If you know the TV show, you don't need to have seen the last 13 episodes to plug in immediately and get something from the conference.
That's a great reference. I love that show.
There will be some macro data refinement on the second night, But anyway.
So, Jeff, I know in January, the SharePoint team had a major moment online. And from your role, you're looking over left to right, so many different areas, including OneDrive and Teams, and obviously Copilot is a major theme. I know we can't reveal much in advance about next month, but what's top of mind for you as you're getting ready?
Yeah, I think one thing I've learned and tried to be crisper on in my career is there's always a core and an innovation part to what you do. The core is making sure that you continue to raise the bar on security, performance, reliability, accessibility is a big focus for us. Usability is a really interesting one for us. And you mentioned OneDrive and you mentioned Teams. Those have very, very diverse users, from people who've grown up with the Microsoft stack and we're getting them to move from attachments to sharing links, to people who've migrated from other platforms that are quite good, Google and Slack, but they've migrated their organizations to Teams and OneDrive. And so we've got to build usable experiences that handle a diverse set of users. And I don't want to call them novice users to power users, because that oversimplifies the range of things people want to do. But just, again, without sort of leaking too much, on the core, I'm excited about the things we're doing, evolving base OneDrive sharing in Teams chats and channels to simplify it at one end of the spectrum, but also address feedback from people who've moved from other tools and, want your more flexible customization to chats and channels and threading models and so forth. So you'll hear us talk about the core a lot, but we'll also talk about AI a lot. Both there will be a big evolution in your personal assistant, Copilot, and how it works for each individual, but also these agents that do work unattended on behalf of one person, but in most cases a team of people. And you can see what we're doing in SharePoint and Teams is basically every meeting, every project, every site will have an agent that will get deeper and deeper skills. So that's, I would say you'll see us talk about that at the event, both having the core be even better for a broad range of hundreds of millions of users, and AI, both the assistant and the agents, a lot of innovation coming there. So excited. We've got a few more weeks to get ready, but I already can see what we're going to be able to share there, and we're pretty excited, and I won't say any more.
One thing that I say to clients and community members, especially ones who are peripherally connected, that if your perception of these technologies was honed in, say, 2016, with the Future of SharePoint event back then, and the beginning is what we were calling modern at the time, or what Teams looked like in 2018, there's just been so much innovation, and AI has fueled lots of it. But there's also delighters just in recent months, like being able to change your display name in a Teams meeting, or flexible layouts on SharePoint pages.
Oh my God, we had that one. Can I riff on that? So we had an event in January that culminated about 12, 18 months worth of UX work in SharePoint that made it dramatically easier to author a site and do so with, like you said, flexible layouts where you can throw a picture on the page and it can have an oblong shape around it and drag it over a few pixels to the right and wrap text around it and change your themes and so forth. And all these things that we now can do in the browser, we really pushed the envelope on layout, editing, rendering in SharePoint. And there'll be more to come there, but just go look at the YouTube videos we dropped for the January event. It's not your father's SharePoint.
Well, and I want to just add a piece there too, because, I love the technology. There's so many amazing new features that we have landed, AI and otherwise, in the core. But also, all of these features don't matter if they don't matter to our customers, right? And so I love connecting the dots between these new flexible layouts. Make you look awesome in front of your boss when your page is beautiful and you can easily share it to everybody in the organization, right? I know that Jeff reads my newsletter and I want it to look good when he does, right? And so learning these new capabilities matters in terms of my actual career development. One of the things we can do as leaders is connect the dots for people as to why all of these new capabilities matter to them. In the adoption space, we call that the aha moment, when people are like, oh, I get it. This matters to me. This is going to make my day actually better and help me at work. And there's another layer that we need to not forget in this workforce transformation, which is leaders, frontline managers, team leaders. They have yet another level of knowledge to think about, how is this going to work for me? But how does this work for my team? Right. So I'll speak for myself. We are changing the way that we do community management at Microsoft to introduce AI capabilities to allow us to close the loop with our community members more quickly, to really improve the measures and the OKRs that we track. So finding those things where this all matters to the individual is one of the things that I love the conference for the most. People can learn a lot about that at the M365 conference.
So, Karuana, let me follow up on that. When you speak with someone who's coming to the conference for the first time, beyond just paying attention to the keynote, what advice do you give them?
I always make sure that they take a look at the mobile app and find their tribe of people. Right? There's so many different activities that happen at the event. The ones that we sponsor, the ones our partners sponsor, but also runners at M365 conference, which maybe Jeff will be at. There's people who go out and do side events, like make those human connections, because those are the people you're going to be able to ping on LinkedIn or shoot an email to later when you're stuck. I can't tell you how many people in this community have helped me. These folks you meet at these conferences can play a really significant role in your career development. And that's the number one thing I want to make sure that people do. And then curate their experience, pick and choose and really decide how you're going to go to the various and sundry sessions in the areas you're interested at. But make a conference buddy early on and you'll have a better experience.
So in many ways, the centerpiece of these events is the keynote. Don't want to suggest otherwise. Jeff, you've landed so many high-impact keynotes previously, and you've brought assistants on stage like Karuana and like me to help tell that story. But I'd love to have you explain for us a little bit about your personal relation with the community. You've been very strongly present at all levels of the community, whether it's these major Microsoft tentpole events or these local community events that happen all over the world. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about not just what you give, but what do you get from these encounters?
Yeah. I think I was listening to Karuana. She made so many good points, because a lot of us sometimes, myself, just get so excited about the features or the technology, we just go. But what really matters and is worth spending time on is the why. And as we think about people in the community, people in our team, the why is more important to people. They get to choose where they work, where they spend their time, and they have a lot of options. And so it's sort of this, we build collaboration tools to help people work together, and we foster a community to help people work together to build and use those tools better. And so they and their teams can get more done, they can advance their careers, and just, going to the why again, just feel proud of themselves. And, as I think about the range of customers and partners and community members I've met, some of them share just unbelievable stories. Merta from Norway, we played a video in the last M365 keynote about her story, where she had a life-changing, disrupting event, and she ran and needed to look for something to do, and she found this technology and this community to help her create and teach and coach and, achieve a sense of self-fulfillment. And so as much as I have one mode, which is, hey, I love the tech. Are we running as fast as we can? Are we the best choice versus other great companies? What really matters is the things that Karuana was hitting on, which is, are we inspiring people to use technology to help others and feel a sense of purpose and contribution? So what we try to do in the keynote is obviously wow people with the latest stuff, and that's fun. I definitely love that. But sometimes I'm up there and thinking, if there's one person, just one person in the room who has no idea why they showed up to this conference, their boss made them or their friend talked them into it, and they're sitting there and like, well, what is this thing? And if we and our team can inspire that one person to use technology to have an impact on others so they can have an impact on themselves, that's kind of what we're trying to do. You asked what I get out of it. It is just unbelievable to work in a team on a product that has that kind of impact on people. I mean, you're supposed to leave the planet better than you found it. And it's not just about winning some technology race. It's about helping people have a sense of fulfillment and purpose that really, at the end of the day, gets me most motivated.
Can I just hop on for 1 second on that? One of the reasons that I work here is because I get to work for leaders like him. They're really heartfelt. And I think that so many of our leaders talk about technology a lot, but being on the inside, we get the benefit. I get the personal benefit of hearing the true motivational stories of our leadership. And I think it's a differentiator for us at Microsoft. Like, we're really thinking about that impact, that meaning that we're having on our community, on our customers. And, Microsoft is a very broad reaching organization. And there's not that many places you can have this kind of impact in the world. And then I get to make that personal. My job didn't exist a few years ago, and just one of the people who let me create it based on the impact that we were having and the work that we were doing. And I think that kind of flexibility and agility in our leadership is going to bode well for us in the future. But that's why I'm excited about bringing new people into this show and into the community and into our ecosystem. You can be whatever you want to be here.
What a pitch, Karuana. I think you and I have... Yeah, be part of something. This is just an amazing community. It'll be fun to be part of, but you will, if you in any way, shape, or form like technology, this will help you realize your potential and your fulfillment. I hope. I mean, please.
Absolutely. Microsoft is the only institution in my life as a African-American female in tech that never told me no. The answer from Microsoft has always been yes. You want to talk to customers, Karuana? Sure, we'll teach you how to do that. You want to build solutions? Awesome. Go teach yourself and we'll help you. You want to expand and grow a team and a discipline that is new and improving? Awesome. Microsoft has always been a yes for me. And I think that a lot of people in the world don't get that kind of yes. So I want them to know where they can find it.
One thing I've been fortunate to be able to see throughout my career, both inside Microsoft and as well as at a number of other large tech companies, is there are lots of organizing principles that people bring to their culture. And Jeff, I know that you've done a great job forging partnership, not just internally at Microsoft, but also externally, whether it's with partners or customers, and in fact, with the whole community. So in that partnership of making sure that folks are feeling included and rewarded for coming to this conference, Karuana, I'd like to ask you about what are some of the activities that you may be planning specially for this year's event?
We have so many things that are happening. We have a community lounge that's going to be up on the 3rd floor of the facility. And there we have a tremendous amount of meetups, a facilitated way that you can meet other IT professionals or other people who are interested in SharePoint. And we'll have community reporters also coming throughout the event, doing interviews and recaps of different sessions. We'll have some fantastic interviews with the product group folks. I really want people to meet the makers, meet the people building this new technology so it can be humanized, right? And we're all real people doing this work. And so, and there's going to be a lot of other fun things that are going on. Plus, we'll have a special moment with our SharePoint Hackathon winners that we announced last week. And I'm really excited to interview them and have them on stage at the show.
One thing, Jeff, I'd love to get your thoughts on, and we were chatting about this earlier. I was at a conference in Atlanta last week, and there were a couple of analysts from Gartner and other analyst firms who were opining that we are moving into a post-generative AI world, which I'm wondering if it's a little early to be talking about it in those terms. Is AI already at its high point and we're moving into a trough of just treating it as a commodity, or are you excited about what's next?
Yeah. AI will have multiple waves. There was a wave where we were almost embarrassed to call it AI when it did sort of image recognition or text to speech or speech to text. That was AI. There was machine learning models there. But as soon as it worked, it was not AI anymore. And then, as you said, with these large language models, we hit generative AI, where it could summarize a meeting incredibly well as a person. It could generate images phenomenally well. Oh my God, some of the images I created in the last week, including some stuff from SharePoint conferences, are just, unbelievable. And so now we're okay to call it AI, but we're in this chapter of, for the most part, most people are using it for summarizing and for rewriting things or creating things to make them clearer. But the latest models do more advanced planning and reasoning. There was some skepticism about 2 years ago. Oh, these things are just probabilistics. They're just picking the next word. This approach will run out of gas. It has definitely not run out of gas. And on top of that foundation of the large language models, we've been all able to build advanced research, reasoning, planning, and so forth. And you see this, we just announced a couple weeks ago, a researcher and an analyst agent, 2 agents that do much more complicated, unattended tasks of go out and see what's the information, write me a research report on it, not just a 1 paragraph quick answer in 10 seconds, but a more substantial piece of work. Go analyze all these numbers and come back and share with me the insights. And so you will see us building agent experiences in M365 on top of those things. And there's, again, we'll go from recapping the meeting to helping you run the meeting, from answering questions on a SharePoint site to helping you prepare the contracts and organize the collateral for the sales force. And there's a whole bunch, without going into the whole technologies, the ability for the AI models to be trained and refined to do planning, research, and reasoning is going to unlock a whole bunch of scenarios that are very core to content management and collaboration. So I can see the next 3 to 5 steps over the next 2 years, and it's going to be pretty incredible. I can't wait to get the M365 conference because we'll talk about some of it, but there will be every 3 months, we can see for the next couple of years the things that will come off the model line and how we'll use it on our apps. And it's just going to be unbelievable.
I can say from having used the researcher agent last week, it's really fascinating to look at what it does and comes back with. We've been building an oral history of this conference going back to its origins at the SharePoint conference back in 2008. Apart from all the technology, what have been some of your favorite moments over the years? Is it Huey Lewis? Is it flash mobs? What are some of the things that stick with you?
There was a couple that got married. And was it? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was at the Mandalay Bay.
Yeah, there was a couple that got married there. For the giant ones in Vegas, we had one in Anaheim, I think in 2011, where we rented out Disneyland for the attendee party because we were, you have to be big enough to make that work, but not so big that it wouldn't work. And we were, the SharePoint conference was just the right size at that period to do that. And so I remember watching the fireworks of Jared Spataro, who was running SharePoint marketing then and now M365, and thinking, holy cow, this community, this product, this business, the economics of the business. I grew up in LA. And so if you had told me as a kid, one day you'll be running a product where they will throw a party at Disneyland and you'll sit and see people have fun and you'll just be happy.
What I remember from Anaheim is the answer to the question, why would you take the Jungle Cruise with a cocktail to get to Space Mountain? The answer is because you can.
Yeah.
That's right.
I would say also, though, when we brought the conference back in, I'm trying to remember, Karuana, 2018, maybe it was. So we went to the giant Ignite things, and, we thought that was all we needed, which was great, but we didn't have even the space of that for all the deep sessions on SharePoint and later Teams. And we brought that back, and I think the next year we had the B-52s, which also it was just the right age for Rock Lobster in high school. And so again, this was like, holy cow, the best community in tech is dancing to the best party band ever in Las Vegas. You look around the room and everybody's having fun. And I would do that. I would go in Vegas to walk around the entire pool structure and see people having a good time and think about why they were there. And so anyway, it's not a quick answer, but I love this community. I love this conference, and this year is going to be great. Please sign up today.
Great.
So one last question. I always like to ask our guests about something that may have had an impact from outside the worlds of business and technology, a film, a lecture, a television program that's had an impact on you. Jeff, what's something you've been engaged with recently that you'd like to share?
Yeah, there's so many things, but I'll give you one that maybe is a little bit fun. So there's a show on HBO Max called The Pit. It takes place in an emergency room at Pittsburgh. Noah Wiley of ER fame is now the head of the emergency room and is the most stressful TV show ever. Each episode's an hour and takes place in an hour in the emergency room. And he is running around a million miles an hour, trying to inspire new residents, save lives, make split-second decisions, all while being very human. He's not a perfect, that's what makes the show great. He's struggling with his own demons. And there's a part of me that says, yeah, working in AI is a little bit like working in an emergency room. There's not live or die, but the fact that you have to make decisions fast and you have to have EQ and empathy for each person you're dealing with, be it a doctor, a patient, a parent whose kid, I won't give things away. So watch The Pit.
Karuana, what's something that you've been enjoying recently?
Well, I don't watch as much as I might like, although I'm a true crime buff. So I'm one of those ladies, so I won't watch a dog get hurt, but I can watch murder shows all day long on television. But, recently I have to say I've been really into some creators on TikTok. The transformation of the way people are landing messages and producing content now is so different than when I was, in film school back in the day. There's a gal under the desk news, and she is literally under a desk when she talks into her little microphone. And the thought of doing that a few years ago and not being, more made up would have been the antithesis of something that people could trust. But the way people are really trusting the authentic and being clearly authentic now is an important thing, especially in the era of AI. I saw last week the release of some new image generation tools and the kind of, really realistic images that can be generated. So being a human, it's a good time to be human in the world, I think.
Well, thanks for that, too. I've asked a number of my guests that question recently, and no one has yet answered severance. But my hopes are out there. Someone is going to talk about severance eventually on this program.
I'd be more likely to talk about hacks, probably. I like the relationship between the writer and the performer. I think that's a good show on teamwork.
Hey, Chris, if you want a kick, somebody did do a website in JavaScript. They built the app that they use in Severance for macro data refinement. So if you're ever bored and you want to refine some data, and if you do enough of it, we'll bring a marching band to celebrate your progress.
Often I wonder when I'm distracting myself with Sudoku if somewhere those numbers aren't wired up to the MDR division at Lumen. Anyway, Jeff, Karuana, thank you so much for joining us. Jeff Teper and Karuana Gatimu from Microsoft will be keynoting next month at the Microsoft 365 Community Conference in the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. I'll be there too. Can't wait.
Oh my God, it's less than a month away. Oh my God.
Yes. We can't wait to see everyone there.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much for all you do for the community for so many years. It's great that you're doing this, and super happy to join you.
Fantastic. Up next on Polaris, events. It's already a busy year for conferences and meetings. Here's what we're watching. M365 Philly at the Microsoft Innovation Hub in Malvern, Pennsylvania. This will be on April 26th. It's a free event, and our own Shari Oswald will be presenting. Of course, in May, the Microsoft 365 Community Conference, starting May 6th through 8th at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Jeff and Karuana will lead the Microsoft keynote, along with many other speakers from across the community, from Microsoft, Synozur, partners, customers, and more, even me. You can learn more and register at nextgen365events.com. Now, if you can only go to one event in May, please come to the M365 conference. But if you can go to two, I'd recommend Microsoft Build. Build will be held May 19th through 22nd at the Seattle Convention Center. This conference is all about developers. Satya Nadella will lead the keynote, and if last year is any guide, you can expect lots of news about AI, Copilot, devices, and of course, new tools for developers. You can attend live or online and register at build.microsoft.com. And wrapping up the first half of the year, TechCon 365 Seattle, June 23rd through 27th. Synozur will be sponsoring and speaking at this event held at the Seattle Convention Center. Learn more at techcon365.com. We'll have links to all of that and more in the show notes. You can learn more at synozur.com/events, and we'll add more events throughout the year. And if you have an upcoming event you'd like us to promote on Polaris, please get in touch and we'd be happy to include it. We're continuing something this week on Polaris. For the next few episodes, we'll be running a small contest. If you like what you hear, please help us spread the word and leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts. This contest will run from now through May 1st, when we'll select one lucky winner to receive a Synozur prize pack with socks, stickers, and a custom jacket. Staff at Synozur is not eligible for this contest, unfortunately. If we look back, 2008 was the first ever SharePoint conference. Bill Gates kicked off the event on the Microsoft campus, announcing the upcoming releases of SharePoint Online and Exchange Online. And this conference has a rich history, with notable events such as the 2012 conference in Las Vegas, which featured over 10,000 attendees, and significant announcements about SharePoint 2013, the integration of Yammer, and the upcoming availability of Office 365. Since 2021, the conference has evolved to take a broader focus on all Microsoft 365, changing its name to reflect the platform's growth and the integration of various collaborative tools. It's been held in Redmond, Anaheim, Orlando, and Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay, the Venetian, and the MGM Grand. My first SharePoint conference was in 2009. The first time I spoke at the conference was in 2012. So this year, we're working with Microsoft to help compile an oral history of the M365 conference and its predecessor. We'd love to get your story, whether you're a speaker, an attendee, a sponsor. There are so many events that have happened over the years in and around this conference, whether it's people showing up with a coffin, staging dance parties, or flash mobs. The strangest one that I can think of was in 2012. So I was delivering a session on migration to the cloud. My session was, I believe, on a Thursday at 8:30 in the morning. So I made sure to check all of my decks, to go to bed early so that I'd be well rested. And I delivered a session that I thought went reasonably well. All of the sessions were recorded so people could access them later on. They flagged me in the afternoon and said that they'd made a technical mistake and that the first 10 minutes of my recording were missing. So could I please come back at 6 p.m. to the same room in the same clothes and repeat the opening 15. My breakout room was located directly next to the expo floor. At that time, there were no more sessions. But if suddenly people can hear from the PA, there was a session going on, they were interested in attending. So as soon as I kicked in, and it was evening, with "Good morning, welcome to day 3 of the conference," people started trickling in and filling the first few seats. And I went through everything that I did in my introduction, explaining the context, walking through my first demo. And then they gave me the high sign, and I had to unfortunately explain to the 20 people who had wandered in that this wasn't an actual session, but that I appreciated their coming in, and I would send them the deck anyway. So I got to deliver the same session twice, once to a ghost audience in Las Vegas. That's my story. Of course, there'll be many, many others, and we'd love to get yours. If you'd like to share your story, visit us at aka.synozur.com/M365-stories. It'll give you a chance to record your story for up to 10 minutes. We'll compile the best of those stories and edit them together for a future podcast, both here on Polaris as well as with my colleague Mark Cashman on the Intrazone. Well, that's a wrap for another episode of Polaris. I'd like to thank our guests, Jeff Teper and Karuana Gatimu, for joining us and looking ahead to the M365 Community Conference. We encourage you to check out our show page for links to everything we talked about today and more. Visit us at polaris.synozur.com. Send us your questions and feedback for the Synozur team. You can reach us via email at polaris@synozur.com. Remember to rate, review, and tell all your friends about the show. And follow us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Polaris is produced with help from Riverside.fm. Our theme song, Alternative Dream, is provided courtesy of Adobe. Additional music and sound provided by Indie Guy Records. Graphic design by Josh Brantley. Thanks for listening. I'm Chris McNulty, and this has been Polaris, a show that charts the course for business and technology transformation from Synozur. Learn more at synozur.com. See you next time.